The modern era. Britain's modern era began in the 20th century and was marked by profound and rapid change. The beginning of the century was marked by the First World War, a devastating conflict that caused millions of deaths and transformed the political and social landscape. The war led to disillusionment and a need to reassess social structures, resulting in movements for civil rights and changes in gender relations. After the war, Britain faced significant economic challenges. The Great Depression of the 1930s had a profound effect on the economy, leading to high unemployment and social unrest. However, the period also saw the strengthening of the welfare state, with the creation of the National Health Service, NHS, and the implementation of social welfare policies. The Second World War, from 1939 to 1945, had an even more profound impact. Britain faced air raids and the devastation of war, but emerged from the conflict as one of the world's leading powers. The post-war period brought decolonization, with many colonies gaining independence and Britain reassessing its role in the world. The following years were marked by social, cultural, and political change. The 1960s brought a cultural revolution with emerging social movements, changes in fashion, music, and the fight for civil rights. Britain saw the emergence of iconic bands such as the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, reflecting a spirit of freedom and innovation. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Britain faced new challenges, including issues of immigration, national identity, and the impact of globalization. The 2016 EU Brexit referendum brought intense debates about sovereignty, economics, and national identity to the fore, shaping Britain's future. Britain's modern era is a testament to resilience and adaptation in the face of change, reflecting an ever-evolving society that continues to reinvent itself in a dynamic and interconnected world. Victorian Britain. The Victorian era, which lasted from 1837 to 1901, was a period of great transformation and expansion for Britain. Under the reign of Queen Victoria, Britain became the most powerful imperial power in the world, controlling vast territories in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. The British Empire expanded significantly, driven by economic interests, exploration, and a belief in cultural superiority. The Industrial Revolution continued to shape British society, bringing technological advances such as the steam locomotive and electricity. Cities grew rapidly, and the working class established itself as a significant force. However, living conditions in urban areas were often poor, leading to a growing social consciousness. The Victorian period was also marked by a rich cultural life. Literature flourished, with authors such as Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy, and the Bronte sisters exploring social issues, love and morality in their works. Art, theatre, and music also flourished, reflecting the complexities of Victorian life. The Victorian era, however, also faced challenges. The suffragette movement gained momentum, fighting for women's rights, while social issues such as poverty and inequality began to be more debated. The impact of the Industrial Revolution and the expansion of the empire brought to the fore ethical questions that still resonate in contemporary society. The end of the Victorian era, with the death of Queen Victoria in 1901, marked the end of a period of great change and laid the foundations for the transformations of the 20th century. Georgian Britain. Georgian Britain, which lasted from 1714 to 1830, was marked by great social, political, and economic transformations. The era began with the rise of the Hanoverian dynasty, when George I ascended the throne. During this period, England experienced unprecedented economic growth driven by the Industrial Revolution. Technological innovations changed production and transportation. With the introduction of machinery, and the construction of railways. Cities grew rapidly, with a significant rural exodus as people sought jobs in factories. This resulted in rapid urbanization and the formation of new social classes, such as the industrial working class. Georgian society was also marked by major cultural changes. The Enlightenment brought new ideas about politics, science, and human rights, influencing thinkers such as John Locke and Adam Smith. Literature, art, and architecture flourished, with figures such as Jane Austen and William Blake emerging as cultural icons. However, Georgian Britain also faced social challenges. Working conditions in factories were often inhumane, leading to the emergence of labor movements seeking better conditions and rights. Slavery in the colonies became a controversial moral issue, resulting in campaigns for its abolition. The period was also characterized by internal political tensions, such as the American Revolution, which led to the loss of the American colonies and influenced British political thought. The Georgian era, with its innovations and conflicts, prepared the ground for the social and political transformations that would come in the 19th century. Stuart's Britain. The Stuart dynasty began with the accession of James I in 1603, uniting the crowns of England and Scotland. The beginning of the Stuart era was marked by tensions between the monarchy and Parliament, which intensified during the reign of Charles I. The attempt to impose Anglicanism and increase royal power led to the English Civil War in 1642. The war was a brutal conflict between the royalists, who supported the king, and the parliamentarians, led by figures such as Oliver Cromwell. The result was the execution of Charles I in 1649 and the declaration of a republic under Cromwell's rule. The republic brought a number of changes, including the dissolution of the monarchy and the establishment of a military government. However, the republican experiment was brief. With Cromwell's death in 1658, political instability grew, leading to the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, with Charles II assuming the throne. The return to monarchical rule brought a cultural and scientific renaissance known as the Restoration. During the reign of James II, religious tensions rose again, resulting in the Glorious Revolution of 1688, which led to the deposition of James in favor of his daughter, Mary II, and her husband, William of Orange. This event established the supremacy of Parliament over the monarchy and guaranteed the protection of civil rights and religious freedom. The Stuart era was therefore a period of intense power struggle between the monarchy and Parliament, shaping future British politics and establishing democratic principles that would influence future generations. The Tudors. The Tudor dynasty, which ruled England from 1485 to 1603, was marked by great political, religious, and cultural changes. Henry VII founded the dynasty after the Wars of the Roses, establishing a strong and centralized government. However, it was his son, Henry VIII, who stood out, known for his 6 wives and his break with the Catholic Church. The Act of Supremacy of 1534 declared Henry the head of the Church of England, leading to the English Reformation. This religious shift had profound social and political consequences, resulting in the persecution of Catholics and the dissolution of monasteries, which enriched the crown and changed the religious landscape of England. Henry's daughter, Elizabeth I, ascended the throne in 1558, ushering in a period of stability and prosperity. Known as the Elizabethan Age, this period was marked by a flourishing of the arts, with playwrights such as William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe rising to prominence. Maritime exploration also flourished, with figures such as Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh expanding England's horizons. However, religious tension persisted. The attempted Spanish invasion, known as the Spanish Armada of 1588, was a turning point. The defeat of the Armada not only consolidated Elizabeth's power, but also established England as an emerging naval power. The end of the Tudor dynasty with the death of Elizabeth in 1603 ushered in the Stuart dynasty, but the Tudor legacy left an indelible mark on British history, with transformations that shaped national identity. Medieval Britain. Medieval Britain, which lasted from the 5th to the 15th centuries, was a period of great political, social, and cultural transformation. After the withdrawal of the Romans, the island faced invasions by Angles, Saxons, and Vikings, resulting in the formation of small kingdoms. The Christianization of Britain, initiated by missionaries, was a significant milestone of this period, shaping the culture and politics of the time. In the 11th century, the Battle of Hastings in 1066 was a crucial turning point. William the Conqueror defeated the Anglo-Saxon king Harold II, establishing Norman rule. This conquest brought profound changes to the social and political structure, with the feudal system being implemented. Norman nobles controlled vast tracts of land, while the peasants worked for them. The Catholic Church emerged as a dominant force, influencing daily life and political decisions. Gothic cathedrals began to emerge, reflecting religious devotion and architectural skill. Literature and art flourished, with works of art still appreciated today. However, medieval Britain was also marked by internal conflicts. The 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453, between England and France had a significant impact on politics and the economy. Although England achieved notable victories, the war ended with the loss of almost all French possessions. The Wars of the Roses, a dynastic struggle between the houses of Lancaster and York, culminated in the rise of the Tudors. With the victory of Henry VII in 1485, the medieval era came to an end, paving the way for the transformation of Britain under the new dynasty. Viking Britain. The Viking Age, which began in the late 8th century and extended into the 11th century, brought a new wave of invasions and settlements in Britain. The Vikings, originally from Scandinavia, were skilled navigators and feared warriors. They began their raids in search of wealth, land, and resources, attacking monasteries and coastal cities. One of the first notable attacks occurred in 793, when the monastery at Lindisfarne was sacked. This event marked the beginning of a series of Viking invasions that profoundly affected Britain. The Vikings established settlements in several regions, particularly the coastal areas of eastern and northern England. Cities like Jorvik became important Viking centers, where Scandinavian culture blended with local culture. The Viking Age was marked not only by invasions, but also by cultural interactions. The Vikings brought new agricultural techniques, expanded trade, and navigational skills. Viking art, with its intricate patterns and styles, left an indelible mark on British aesthetics. However, resistance was also strong. King Alfred the Great of Wessex was notable for uniting the English kingdoms against the invaders. His victory at the Battle of Edington in 878 was a turning point in the fight against the Vikings. Eventually, the Vikings established the Danelaw, an area where their laws and customs prevailed, but Anglo-Saxon culture continued to resist. The Viking Age culminated in a cultural fusion, resulting in a more diverse Britain, with Norse influences that shaped language, art, and politics. With the arrival of the Normans in the 11th century, the Viking Age would come to an end, but their contributions to British culture would endure. Roman Britain. Roman Britain began with an invasion in AD 43, when Emperor Claudius sent his legions to conquer the island. Resistance from the Celtic tribes was fierce, but over time the Romans established a rule that would last for almost 4 centuries. The impact of the Roman presence was profound, bringing innovation in infrastructure, architecture, and culture. The Romans built a vast network of roads connecting major cities and military fortresses, facilitating trade and the movement of troops. Cities such as Londinium, London, and Eboracum, York, became thriving urban centers with public baths, temples, and amphitheaters. Romanization influenced local elites who adopted Roman customs, the Latin language, and legal practices. The construction of Hadrian's Wall, an impressive fortification that marked the northern border of the Roman province, exemplified the Romans' effort to control the region and protect itself against invasions by Celtic tribes. Despite Romanization, resistance never completely disappeared. One of the most notable episodes was the revolt led by Boudica, queen of the Iceni, in 60 AD, which resulted in significant destruction but was eventually defeated. As the Roman Empire began to weaken, especially in the 4th century, legions were withdrawn from Britain. This left the island vulnerable to invasions by Germanic peoples such as Angles and Saxons. The Roman legacy, however, endured through the institutions it established, influencing British society for centuries. Iron Age. The Iron Age, which began around 800 BC and lasted until the Roman conquest in AD 43, brought significant changes to Britain. During this period, Celtic tribes dominated the region, forming complex and structured tribal societies. The introduction of iron revolutionized tool and weapon making, enabling significant advances in agriculture, hunting, and warfare. Communities became more organized, leading to the formation of small kingdoms and the construction of fortifications known as hill forts. These forts were strategically positioned on hills and served as both defense and administrative centers. Trade practices increased, and tribes began to interact with neighboring cultures, resulting in the exchange of goods and ideas. Culturally, the Iron Age was marked by the rich oral tradition of the Celts, which included myths, legends, and songs. Celtic art was prominent in jewelry, pottery, and engravings, reflecting a unique aesthetic that would influence future generations. The emergence of religious rituals and the construction of sacred monuments highlight the importance of spirituality in everyday life. As contact with the Mediterranean world increased, the Celts also began to experience outside influences, paving the way for the eventual arrival of the Romans. The Iron Age was a crucial period of development that defined Britain's cultural identity, leaving legacies that would endure for centuries. Bronze Age. The Bronze Age in Britain began around 2500 BC and lasted until around 800 BC. During this period, communities began to make extensive use of copper and tin to create more durable tools and weapons. The introduction of metal into society marked a significant transition in terms of technology and social organization. Villages became more complex and hierarchical structures began to be established. Agricultural practices evolved, allowing communities to become more sedentary. Farmers began to grow cereals such as barley and wheat, and domesticate animals such as sheep and cattle. This led to population growth and the emergence of larger settlements. Pottery constructions became sophisticated, reflecting the artistic skills of the time. Megalithic monuments such as Stonehenge date from this era. These monumental structures are remnants of rituals and social practices, reflecting the increasing complexity of spiritual and cultural life. Mound-shaped tombs, known as barrows, also became common, evidencing beliefs about the afterlife and ancestor worship. The Bronze Age was, therefore, a period of great innovation and social transformation, which laid the foundations for the more complex societies to come, particularly during the Iron Age, where Celtic influence and traditions would become predominant. United Kingdom House. The House of the United Kingdom, made up of 4 nations, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, has a rich tapestry of history stretching back thousands of years. The formation of this collection of nations has been shaped by a series of political, social, and cultural events that have defined British identity. The first evidence of human habitation in the region dates back around 800,000 years, but the most significant civilizations began to emerge during the Bronze Age, around 2500 BC. During the Bronze Age, Celtic tribes began to settle, developing a complex society with farming, metalworking, and trading practices. Celtic culture spread throughout Britain, creating a strong sense of identity among the tribes. This era was marked by impressive monuments such as Stonehenge, which, although its exact purpose remains a mystery, reflect the engineering skills and knowledge of the societies of the time. Over time, Britain underwent several transformations, mainly with the arrival of new peoples such as the Romans, Angles, Saxons, and Normans, who left their mark on the culture, language, and religion of the region. The invasions and settlements of these peoples shaped the emerging kingdoms, which often fought among themselves. The political and cultural unity of the House of the United Kingdom began to take shape in a more significant way during the Middle Ages. The Union of England and Scotland in 1707, followed by the incorporation of Wales and Northern Ireland, gave rise to modern Great Britain. However, this union was not without its challenges, including cultural and political tensions that persist to this day. The UK House, as we know it, is a fascinating example of how diverse identities can coexist and intertwine over time, reflecting a rich and complex history. The legacy of this history continues to influence contemporary British society, which still struggles to balance its regional and national identities in an ever-changing world.